Okay, story time. So, with the nature journal, there are stories for every picture. Um, Here's the story. So the first time I saw a cabbage white, first time I knew what a cabbage white was when I was with my grandparents. Well, at my grandparents' place. Me and my brothers, when we were little, around 1983, 1985, somewhere around there, we used to take holiday trips to the Scottsburg, Indiana, where my grandparents lived. And it was farmy area, cornfields and that cows and stuff. And we saw these butterflies everywhere. We used to collect insects and stuff. So, you catch one, it's okay. But it's, three brothers. So we had a competition. So these guys, we didn't really care after a bit. Now, this was near the university. This was in the university that I worked at in China, the last one I worked at. And every spring, it would have these amazing flowers, and all the students would come and take pictures and, all this stuff. And this guy I worked with, he was like, "Hey, you could take the leaves and make tea." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Well, I've heard it. I don't know." So that's where that was. So then I found out, the Japanese, they do a lot more with it, oil and stuff like that. Now, found this guy. I was riding my bike or walking or something along this. In the middle of the city I lived in Huangshi, there's a giant lake. And there's a road that goes down the middle of the lake on a levee. And I found this guy there, and I was like, okay, I'm going to find out what it is. But there's like 250 different bumblebees in just that one area. So I was like, eh. Uh, I tried to find the pattern. It didn't look the same and all this stuff. I didn't know what to do. This guy, again, is on campus at the school. And when it blooms, it is something special. When it doesn't bloom, nobody cares. It's between the Confucius building, the teaching building, and the sports center. Now, I have seen, like these kind of magpies a couple times in China, but I had seen something called an azure magpie. Me and my son, we saw this. My son's like, "Hey, check it out, check it out." My kids, I have two kids, and we take walks everywhere, and they know I draw these pictures and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, look at this bug. Oh, look at this bird. Oh, look at this thing." And they're always telling me to take pictures of it because I take pictures first and then I draw the stuff. But there's this famous story about two lovers in ancient China who couldn't be together for whatever reason. It was a farmer and a seamstress, and at one time the special thing happened, and the magpies created a bridge from one side of the river to the other side of the river so that the couples could walk on top of the magpies and kiss. So that's something that they have. I don't know. Pretty cool. Um, yeah, this is your traditional cherry blossom tree. I think we had three different cherry blossom trees on campus. So this one was on my way to the gym. And, here we have the Japanese name because most of the time when I think cherry blossoms, I think Japan. So here, I've seen, first time I saw one of these things was, I think, 2009, maybe 2008, somewhere around there. I saw one of these things, and the student was like, "Don't get near it. It smells terrible." And I was like, "What is it?" It looks like an ant mixed with a spider. When you see it in person, it's big. It's not a small thing. And here or in Huangshi, I saw a bunch of them on the campus, but only dead. They come out at nighttime, and sometimes the cars will come by and squash them, or students will come by and step on them. They don't know. Um, but these things eat cockroaches. I freaking hate cockroaches. So I think these guys are good. They look scary as hell, but if they eat these, they're okay with me. Um, Now, this flower was near the gate that I used to walk into the school all the time. So the school had four gates. north, south, east, and west. And I think I came in the west gate, and they would have these flowers during a certain time of year. This old couple, they had like this small store with two grandchildren. The grandchildren were exactly the same age as my children. So I used to go there and play with the kids, and then my kids would come sometimes and they would play together. But these are really beautiful flowers. Saw this guy, and I was like, okay, take a picture, cool. And then I found out he actually comes from the United States. What's he doing in China? So I did a little more research, and I found out these guys like to hide in the wood. And China and the United States the United States has provided China with a lot of pine. And this guy will hide in pine and come to China. Similar story with this guy. This guy is the most popular turtle for a pet, for a household pet. I think he comes from Brazil. And so he comes to China, and the Chinese kids, they have this pet. They think he dies, or they don't like him, or whatever. They throw him into the nearby river or pond or whatever, and he can survive. He's really good at surviving. So now they got these things everywhere. This thing is everywhere. This butterfly, he's pretty popular. He's pretty much everywhere. And so I never seen them until I got to China. This was the first time I seen this kind of butterfly. Now, cicadas, and in the place I lived, Huangshi, they had two different kinds, black or the green kind. And normally they are in the trees. You could just hear them, but I would show my kids, like, look up, there's one right there, there's one right there, and so they could see it and they like it. One time though, this one flew to the ground. I picked it up and I showed my kids real close, like what it looks like, and then I threw it into the air, and of course he flies back up into the sky. But my kids were like, "Oh my god!" It was pretty fun. They have these things. There was this children's park that we used to go to. They have these everywhere. So I feel like on the off season, they use the children's park to breed. Now on campus, they had these guys. They were everywhere. But students don't pay attention to where they walk, so they squish them all the time. I like them, and they kind of look like snakes with legs. Now these guys, they're huge. We had these near my house. So you come home, you see them on the wall. I'm not a big fan of spiders, but I do know spiders are good creatures. They help us, they eat the bad stuff or whatever. So I'm cool with spiders, but I don't want them to get near me. Anyway, this thing, they would be on the walls, and my kids would be like, "Oh, look at the spider." I'm like, I'd tell them about it. It's a huntsman and all this stuff. And we saw a mom with the egg sack underneath it. And I was telling my kids, it's a mom. Look, the egg sack. It's going to have babies. You got to wait 3 weeks. I looked up all the information. It's going to be 3 weeks. But then it disappeared, and we didn't see any for a long time. But then they came back. One night we came back, and it was nighttime, and it's all dark, and we had the flashlights out, and we shone the flashlight at the stairs. There's like 3 or 5 of them. Like there's a bunch of them on the ground. They're like flying around because they move really fast. My kids were like, "I don't want to go." I was like, "Me either," but we gotta go. We gotta go home. This is a very, very common bug in Hubei, China. Kids often use this to fight against each other. So this one's really popular. They call it a scarab, but I don't think it's called a scarab. Now this thing is the American version or Japanese version of this thing. So they're pretty much the same thing, but this one comes from Japan, this one comes from China. Now I saw this weevil, and he's pretty big, but I couldn't figure out which one he is. It's some of these bugs, they're really hard to exactly identify. So, I thought he looked pretty cool, and I drew his picture, but I don't really know much about him. Now, this was on a stair, and I thought, wow, look at the color. This is the real color of this thing. He was like metallic and stuff, so it was pretty cool. Not much. I mean, like if you see something like this, it just looks black. So, then I saw this ladybird, and I did a little information on him. Whatever. This this bird has a story. It's called in Chinese, it's the Seven Sisters. They're called the Seven Sisters here. And it's because they tend to fly around in groups of seven. Um, and I don't know, I guess there's a little more stories to it. I tried to find out all the information about these things in China, but young people, they don't know much, and old people don't care. This guy was on top of our building. Our building was 9 floors tall, and he was on the very top one night. I think around like 8 or 9 p.m. Like the sun's going down, it's getting dark. I couldn't see very clearly, and then I saw him, and I got out my camera, of course, and I zoomed in. And I took a picture, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool! How the hell did he get up here?" But he's very common in China. My mother hates spiders, so she wouldn't look at this stuff. So this guy is a wolf spider, it looks like, yeah. I saw him. He was pretty cool. This is one of the bees, the hornets that I saw. They don't tend to have a lot of different kinds of bees. There was maybe 5 different bees I saw there the whole time, which is surprising because, I was walking in the mountains with my kids and stuff, or around the lakes and stuff with my kids, and we only saw a few of these things. So this is your traditional old world swallowtail. Like I said, when I was with my brothers and we go to my grandma's house in Scottsburg, Indiana, we used to like hunt these things. They were fantastic. We loved them. This and the black swallowtails. But yeah, I saw them in China. I was like, what? This is like from hometown. But it's old world, which means it's from Europe, or old world area. This rat was actually near the turtle that we saw before, and they're both we had this big lake, and they're on like a little shore area. I used to ride with my daughter. She would ride in the basket of my bicycle as we rode around the lake, and we'd stop every once in a while when I saw something. I was like, hey, check this out, and I'd take pictures and stuff. And so this guy was hanging out with the turtle. The turtle was not happy about the situation. This guy was on the way to my school. I saw him on this road. He was about to die, but he was in really perfect condition. So I think it might have just been his time. So I took his picture. He's beautiful, absolutely stunning. These are very common, Chinese snowball trees. They're everywhere. So you can see them like in parks and everywhere. You got it, you're flaunting it. I was waiting one time to meet the arts department of the school I was working for, Hubei Normal University. And I was sitting in this place, and there's this little guy. I was like, hey, cool. So I took a picture of him. Around the lake, I took a lot of pictures of these flowers in the spring. They had these beautiful flowers like this guy and this guy. So I took took pictures of the flowers. That's what I like to do. So my daughter, she's always like, hey, there's a flower. Have you taken that picture? My daughter is like, now she's 4. So, this was cool. Behind our building, there was this old building. We're not sure if anybody lived there or not. When we first moved in, I'm positive somebody lived there. But after a while, they took off the roof. And then, so I was like, oh, they probably moved, I guess. But there's this tree that grew out the side of it. And so when I started doing the research about it, this is the tree that created paper. This was the first paper tree. They used the leaves to create paper. But eventually they tore down the building, half the building, which looked like it was ready to fall down. But I think people were still living in it. It was pretty impressive. I hope the people got money. I doubt the people got money, but it's pretty cool. Paper mulberry tree. So this guy. So my daughter and I, we're going down. We're riding a bicycle. She's in the basket. I'm riding the bicycle, and we saw this guy on this piece of wood out in the middle of the lake. I took a picture, and then I went to find out what it was, and it's a Chinese egret. There's only 3,000 to 5,000 of these things in the world. They're like really rare birds, and when they have this thing on the back, it means they're going to make babies. Since then, I've seen 5 to 7 of them in the city, so I was pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, another flower, on campus or whatever, we find these flowers, and like it says, native to Mexico. So they take flowers from all over the world and they bring them in, and that kind of thing. I saw this guy at night. I was walking home, and on the fourth floor of the building I lived at was like the landing area, and then we lived 6 floors above this. And this guy was on the wall one night. He's pretty big. He's pretty giant guy. So I took his picture, but kind of boring looking actually. They have these trees all over the city, and they have these giant flowers just in one time of the year, but the rest of the time they just look like these waxy kind of trees. But they're magnolias. I've heard the name magnolia for years. I just didn't know what it was. I saw this stink bug outside my son's guitar class, the first place he took guitar lessons. Took the picture, tried to find it, couldn't figure out exactly what it was. Now for the bitter melon, bitter gourd, this was actually on top of our building. So our building, like I said, 4 floors, landing, and then we have 7 or 8 more floors on top of that. And on the top of the roof, people will grow their own vegetables, like, this or onions or whatever. And so I saw the flower and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And so I took the picture of the flower and then I found out what it was. But yeah, they got farms on top of pretty high buildings in China. One day I was asked to come and do an extra lesson for this place, and I did the first morning class, and then I had a break, and then I had an afternoon class. So I walked around, and I found this bird near a creek, and I was like, this is so cool. And he's supposed to protect people from fire, but he looks like fire, right? I took my daughter to a park, and we were in the park walking around and we're taking photos, and there was this giant frog. I was like, hey, check it out. It's bigger than my hand, like my hand, just bigger. It's huge. It's a fantastically huge bullfrog. This snake I saw on the sidewalk while walking down the street one day. In China, some people eat snakes. And so I think he escaped somebody's supermarket bag and was just trying to make his escape. Well, we're in the middle of a city and the snake's just going down the road. Okay, so this was China. The rest is not China. So we'll talk about that another time.